again, everybody. This is Derek, also known as Mr. Everything, and I am coming at you with something new and exciting for me. Um, I am new into the Harnmaster or Harnworld setting from Columbia Games. Um, I'm looking forward to experimenting, developing, and playing many hours in the Harn universe. What we're going to do over the next few weeks is I'm going to produce a bunch of videos showing my development in the Harn world. I want to let everyone know that I've only really been reading the Harn material for about 2 weeks now. This is going to be episode 0, kind of my introduction to the Harn world in an overview. And then in the next video, I plan to make a character on screen, and it think of it like a tutorial, like I am creating and showing you how to create a character. We will, because there's so much information in Harn, I mean 40 years worth of material, that it would be impossible to go over all of it in 1 or 2 hours. So I plan to break this up into 1 or 2 hour videos into chapters, and I'm going to try to focus on an aspect of the Harn universe, and then and dig a little deeper, mainly for myself because I'm a noob when it comes to the Harnmaster, but also to let you see how deep and immersive Harn can actually be. Okay, so in today's video, we're going to do a general overview, and like this is going to be my introduction to you of what I think Harn is so far. This is my first impressions of Harn, basically. I have never run a game in Harn. I have run D&D, the Fantasy Trip, RuneQuest. The list goes on. I have a video out there that talks about why I'm leaving D&D. Harn is the reason why I'm leaving D&D. It's one of the reasons. But what I'm trying to say is I've been playing role-playing games since the 80s, late 70s, and I've tried a score of different systems, and I wish I had discovered Harnmaster a long time ago, because it seems like it's exactly what I'm looking for in an RPG. Okay, so let's start talking about it. Okay, let's get rid of that. Okay, so we're going to be exploring Harn in the Roll20 system. I'm using the Roll20 as my virtual tabletop. I play with my players via the internet over Discord using Roll20, and I find it fairly easy to take a map from one of the PDFs that I have from the Harn universe and convert it to, like I did with this one, convert it to a virtual tabletop map. Super easy, just upload it. And you resize it and everything. First thing you'll notice on this world map, this is not even the world. Okay, first of all, this is not even the world. This is just an island of Harn in the world. I'm going to my list of PDFs. I'm going to Harnworld. There we go. See if I can make that a little bit bigger for everybody. There we go. This is the Harn world. It's called Lithia, right? Okay, so this is the planet. This is good for those game masters out there that want a complete world, right? You've got, and there, it's designed in a way that you can draw from Earth and have an analogy or make it analogous to Earth. Like this whole section right here, what would that be? It might be Africa, possibly, right? That wouldn't be, but you could say that that right there is probably you could treat it like Africa, and then you got the Mediterranean sort of, right? Then over here you've got Japan, right? I mean, they even have showed you as one of the cities over there, and then you're looking at Russia and maybe India. Oh, India, and then maybe Turkey, and then this would be very reminiscent of maybe an Australia style. If you're looking for weather and sea patterns and stuff like that, you could easily look for that. And then over here we got Europe, right? And the kingdoms that they have set up on this world are similar. So you're going to look at maybe a Germanic over here. Now remember, Harn is set in the year 720 of this game world, but 720 in this game equates to about 1200 on Earth. Somewhere between 11 and 13. I just say 12. But you could think France or Spain. You can think Italy, possibly down here, or Rome. You know, like an imperial Rome, if you want. You know, and then Scandinavia and all that. But this island right here is Harn. That is the like Ireland, Scotland, the northern area here is kind of like Skyrim. You're looking at like the Nords or the which came from over here. I do believe they invaded and landed over here. But this being about twice the size geographically to England, right? So you're looking at England and Ireland plus a little bit extra, and that's the island of Harn. So if I was to, can't do it here. Okay. Yeah, if I was to zoom in to here, right? This is this. So you can see like Coronon right there. And then if you look, I think it's right there, is Coronon. And then you got Tashal, which is the capital of Caldor, which is right there. So, okay, so that's the world, but this is Harn, and this should be more than enough landscape to do all your role playing, right? And then just think of it like medieval England, the feudal England. There are a number of kingdoms on Harn. You got Caldor is one of them. You got Meldorin down here. This this forested area in this area is where the elves live, and then you got the mountains. Here is where the dwarves live, and then all through these mountainous areas here is really where the orcs and the monsters live. This area here, there's actually a monster factory, and I'll get into that a little bit, but that has something to do with religion. One of the gods is creating experimental creatures, and those are what you would call monsters. Um, and then there's the Tharda Republic, and this has like 3 kingdoms. One of them, I think Retham, I don't remember which ones are which. Remember, I'm a noob. But one of these kingdoms is kind of like evil. Another kingdom down here, I believe, is like run by the church, I think. And then there's another kingdom down here as well that is like an ex-Rome, like it was Rome, and it developed into a senatorial style kingdom. And then there's Orbal right there. That's where all the Nords live. And I'm sure I'm missing a few. I think there's another kingdom right in here. I can't remember which one it is. These aren't kingdom names. Not that I know of. Okay. But there's a lot of wilderness, right? There's a lot of room for you to create your own adventures, your own twist on this world. You do not, they call it P-Harn, or I've heard some people call it P-Harn, which basically means it's your personal Harn. Harnworld, the supplement, Harnworld, gives you all the history of the world up to a certain point, 720. And then going forward from 720, it's up to you to decide how your campaign progresses. Now, if you want to play back in 610 or whatever, you can do that. You have the history all laid out, ready to go. If you want to play further in the future, you can do that. You can do whatever you want. It's your game. But the way it's designed is for the game master to start off at 720 and go forward from there using his own take of the world. No two Harn worlds have to be exactly the same. That's not. It's not meant to be that way. Not like Forgotten Realms, right? Forgotten Realms, they have a timeline from a long time ago, first edition, many years, all the way. They've got, you've got history and lore built up over the many years, which the history and the lore wasn't written as history. It was written as this campaign module came out on this day, and then we progress the timeline. Another campaign module comes out, and those campaign modules tell the story of the world, which is kind of cool in a way, but it forces the campaign to progress. And when you jump in to Forgotten Realms, you are pretty much thrown in at a certain day, usually like 1420 or something like that. Okay. So I plan to run my game in Caldor. Okay, just putting it out there. I plan to run it in Caldor because it's the least unusual. It's the most familiar to me, right? It's your traditional, standard, medieval kingdom, right? It's a feudal kingdom, kings and queens and princes and earls and dukes and all that kind of stuff. Knights of the Round Table, right? Knights of the Round Table. No, okay. So that's Caldor, right? And that's not the only reason why I chose it. I chose it because it is landlocked. Okay, you'll notice it's not on a shore. All the other kingdoms are on a shore, which would make for more diversity when it comes to culture, because you're going to get ships and stuff coming from other kingdoms and even maybe the mainland to your port cities. And there's going to be a lot of that mixing of culture, right? Well, Caldor is going to be pretty much pure Harniac, right? Also, it's one of the closest kingdoms, if not the closest kingdom, to the Monster Factory. So I plan to run a mid fantasy. Now, you can run in Harn, you can run high fantasy where wizards were around every corner. You got magic shops, people selling +1 swords to their, till their heart's content. You've got wizards casting spells everywhere. You got elves running around in the street. You got, dragons flying overhead. That's high fantasy. The crown guard is all riding griffins. That's your D&D style game. That's Dungeons Dragons. Super high fantasy. And then there's low fantasy, right? Low fantasy is akin to, let me think about this just for a second. Game of Thrones. Okay, the Game of Thrones. I never read the books, but I did watch the TV series. So, yes, there are undead, as you know, White Walkers and stuff like that, skeletons and things. And there are dragons. And there are, what are those guys called? The woad, right? The guys that can enter into animals and see through their eyes and whatever. But really, where else is there any magic? Right? You don't see wizards running around casting spells, throwing fireballs. You don't see any of that, right? There might be a dagger that's got a special ability to kill White Walkers or something, but that's about it, right? That's all you really see. There's not a whole lot of magic in Game of Thrones. Another example of low magic. Just give me a second. I'm thinking Excalibur, the story of the Knights of the Round Table, right? You've got Merlin. He's a wizard, but does he cast spells? I mean, not really. And then you got the knights and everybody running around. They talk about dragons, but really they're talking about dragons in like kind of a spiritual sense. They have witches, that can create concoctions and maybe elixirs and stuff like that. But I mean, you do have the Lady of the Lake, but and you have the one artifact, well, two, I guess. You have the Excalibur, which is a magical sword, and then you've got the chalice, the Grail, and I'm sure there's a few other wizards and stuff like that. But there's not a whole lot of that. Okay, so those would be considered low magic. I want to go somewhere in the middle, right? Somewhere where there is magic. It's fairly common, but not overbearing. Like in D&D, it is overbearing. There is a magic shop in every town. Every party member is carrying a magic weapon. It's every person in the game can cast magic spells, cantrips, or whatever. I don't want it to be that much magic, and I don't want it to be so little magic that there's none of it running around. So mid fantasy would be something like Middle Earth, right? You've got the elves and the dwarves and the humans, right? And there are orcs and there are monsters like trolls and dragons and giant wolves and spiders. And so there are monsters. There is magic, but it's not super common. You have a handful of wizards, and the elves live in their elven territories, and the dwarves live in the dwarven territories, and they don't really intermix with the humans. And that's exactly the way Harn is presented. The dwarves stay in their mountains, and the elves stay in their woods. Now, they might have envoys and messengers and stuff like that come out. And as a player, you probably could play an elf or a dwarf, but the game system actually recommends that you don't play those if you're new to Harn because of their alien mentality, not their physiology, because they have no difference in physiology. I mean, dwarves are sturdier and elves are more agile than the baseline human, but that's pretty much it. There's no like magic powers that one has over the other, like night vision or immune to poison or nothing like that, right? Okay, as far as I can tell. But then again, I don't have the Elven Kingdom book and I don't have the Dwarven Kingdom book. I'm just basing this on what I've read so far. Specifically, when you're making a character, there's only a few modifiers for your character, and it doesn't give you any special powers. So I think of the world more like Middle Earth. And then with this place right there, I'm thinking kind of like Mordor. Not exactly. It's going to be different, but like that is where you don't want to necessarily go as a God-fearing citizen of Harn. You don't necessarily want to go there because that's where all the monsters come from. Okay, so I plan to play in Kaldor. Now, because it is mid to low fantasy, there's magic isn't so prevalent in the world that it makes decisions for you. In D&D, and you're gonna hear me reference D&D quite a bit because D&D is the most prevalent RPG out there right now. Everybody can relate to D&D because everyone in the world has probably played D&D. If you're watching this video, you've probably played D&D. All the decisions that are made because of magic. In one module, there is and I'm basing this on the written stories of D&D and not my campaigns, but the written stories of D&D, because you can't compare to my campaigns because that's not official, right? So in one of the written campaigns, to find out if someone is telling the truth or not, all you have to do is put him in a zone of truth spell and find out and get him to tell the truth. Or you could just read his mind, right? Cast a spell, read his mind. If you need to travel from one side of the Forgotten Realms to the other side of the Forgotten Realms, you just cast teleport and move all the way to the other side. Or if you are if you're interested, you fight a few monsters here and there. Well, first of all, in D&D, monsters are every frickin' where, right? Um, there are goblins and orcs and skeletons and kobolds and dragons and ettercaps, and the list goes on and on and on of all the different kinds of monsters. And I have to get into, and this is one reason why I jumped into Harn. You have to get into the mentality of a person living in a world where everything is magic and there are monsters around every corner. Um, that's got to be a weird, unusual um, existence for a person, right? But when you come to Harn, it's a normal medieval existence. You farm your crops, you take it to the market, you sell it. Now, you might go out and hunt deer or defend your sheep crop from wolves, or you might have cattle that you have to move from point A to point B. You have, you know, traditional medieval storylines, right? And then maybe a band of raiding orcs come into a village, and that would be like like um like a Viking raid, right? It would be kind of standard, kind of normal. They're monsters, but are they really? They're just unusual creatures, right? But then, you know, there might be one monster in a in an area, and that becomes like the haunted hill. You don't go to that hill because that's where the one monster is, and nobody goes there. And or a knight might take it upon himself to quest over there to take care of this Jabberwock or whatever it is, right? With his sword called Snickersnack. Some of you will get that reference, but you go to the mind of the person that lives in that area. It's not as life threatening. Um, I mean, the world isn't out to get you like it is in D&D, and there's no there are a few, but I'm going to say no, there are no wizards around every corner that's going to shape things into um, unnatural things. And if they do, if there are wizards in the area that are doing this, that brings up the attention of the Lord, and he might contact um, this specific order of wizards that try to keep all magic in check, and so they might send an envoy to his kingdom to deal with this other wizard, or so being a wizard outside of that group is not conducive to a lifelong existence. So I love that. I love that. It gives people um, not hope, but like a sense of normality. And that's one reason why I enjoy Harn. Okay, or that's the kind of game I want to run. Because if you're role playing a character in a universe, you want to be able to relate to that person or the people around you. You want to be able to relate to your own personal character. Like, why would I do this? What if everything can be resolved with a fireball? Why do I want to be a fighter that walks into a room and uses a sword because everybody's just gonna do magic missiles and fireballs and lightning bolts and all that bullshit? So, but when you take all that out of the game, now you're down to the meat and potatoes of any fantasy role playing game, and that is weapon play, bows, spears, swords, shields, axes, maces. That's where, um, I mean, even in D&D, everybody's carrying a sword, right? And then you might have somebody with a spear or an axe or a mace or whatever. But when it comes to a fight, guess what? You got the thief in the back with his daggers or whatever, but it's still weapon play, right? It always resolves or resorts down to weapon play. Okay. Now let's compare the combat systems of the two games. Now I will be doing a full video on the combat system and how it works and how easy it is, which I've seen some videos and people have said that it is complicated. Well, you know what? Chess is easy, but it's also complicated. There are people that are chess masters because they know all the best moves, right? But if you a novice chess player knows how to move all the pieces, right? And that's Harn. Harn is it's easy to learn the mechanics of the game. It's easy. But it's hard to like maybe wrap your head around what the best way to use those are. And I think that's elegant. I think that's excellent. Now, like I said, we will be doing a video or two on the combat system. And what I'll do is uh, I'll have a like a little battle map with some tokens. We'll move them around and roll some dice and show you exactly how everything works. Um, this is a skill-based system. The whole system is skill-based. You have skills like writing and jumping and singing and dancing and all that kind of stuff. And you will have a percentage that you have to roll less than to succeed. Now on the screen, you'll see over here where I've got Sir Cade blocks with a bastard sword, right? You probably see that, blocks with a bastard sword. Yeah. Okay, so his mastery level is 95, which is pretty good. You can never have a mastery level higher than 95. You might have a skill level, or you might have a mastery level of 100, but it's never considered more than 95 for die roll. So what they're saying is a 96 is always going to be a fail. Same thing with the low end. Everyone has every skill at least 5%. So if you ever roll a 5 or less, you will succeed in that skill whether you have it or not, right? It's everybody's got a chance at everything. There's no character classes. That's another thing I like about Harn. Character classes, I've played a lot of games that don't have character classes. And what I've found is it gives players more agency on how they want to make their character. Or how they might have a vision of, I want to use a bow, but I also want to use a great sword, and I want to be able to ride a horse and use a lance and maybe a shield or whatever. And they can do that where in D&D, when you pick thief, you can only do X, Y, and Z, and you can't do anything else. They have proficiencies. Where in Harn, you have skills, and everything has a skill, and it's a percentage. Okay, you also have stats. They have somewhere near Okay, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Somewhere around 15 stats that, as opposed to 6 stats in D&D. Um, they have a stat for hearing, a stat for eyesight, for smell. You would think you could just put it all into one and call it perception, but sight, you might be hard of hearing, but have really excellent eyesight. Or you might have good hearing and good eyesight. Or you might be intelligent, but not wise. And then they have willpower, right, to see how much intestinal fortitude you have, and they have something called dexterity and agility, because those are different. If you're trying to do fine manipulation, that's dexterity. When you're trying to move your entire body, that's agility. And then they go into other stats as well. They have a stat called endurance. You don't roll for it. It's a it's your endurance is determined by other stats. They have certain stats that are like initiative and endurance and shock. And there's some other stats that you don't roll for. They're multipliers from other stats. Okay, same thing with your skills. Your skills have what's called, I think they call it a skill base. And then depending on your stats, that skill, if you learn it, will have a skill base. And then in certain professions, they give you levels in that skill to start. That's not how you progress with them in the game, but it's just for a starting character. So I'm just going to use this one as an example. Let's say I've got agriculture 4. So I take agriculture and I take the 3 stats that apply to it and I average those 3 stats. That gives me my starting base, my stat base. And then I take that stat base, multiply it by my 4th level, and that gives me my mastery level. Okay? So now the mastery level can be increased. It can actually be decreased as well, but it can be increased through play. So as you play, you make skill tests to see if you can raise your skill, and it goes up. And that's how this guy's got a bastard sword 95, because his stat isn't that good. And then times what, 4 or 5, it's not there. So Sir Cade Gamont is he's actually not the captain of the guard. He's the king's champion. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, he's a fairly powerful character in the service of the king. Okay. We'll get into combat and all that after we make a character. We're going to make a character in a future video. Okay, next thing I want to talk about this universe. There's not 500 gods. There's not a god for every letter in the alphabet. There is 10 gods, and 3 of them are not really playable player worshiping gods. I mean, depending on the game master, if you want to play a game where somebody can worship the undead or whatever, then, or you can worship the god that makes monsters, yeah, you could do that. But there's like a good gods, like in Caldor, there's really only 2 gods that are worshipped in Caldor. There's Peony and Lorraine, right? Lorraine is the Lady of Paladins, which is not really true. Each of the gods has multiple aspects. So think of it like um, think of it like Christianity, right? They might have Jesuits and they might have Templars. You might have um, Hospitalers. You know, these are all different. Um, or if you even think Christianity, you have Catholics and you have Protestants and you have who knows what else, right? So even though there is a specific God, there are dialects, if you want to call it that. They call them aspects, but there's different um, angles that you can come to worship that one God, right? Um, and that applies to all the different gods. They all have different fighting orders and uh, variations of how they worship that one God. So I like that. Now Kaldor has two gods, and these two gods are not really at odds with each other, um, but the clergy is right, and and as it was in medieval England, you're going to have churches trying to pull the strings of the throne, right? They're going to try to be the church behind the throne. They're the ones that are going to be trying to manipulate the rulers into doing what the Lord wants them to do, right? And so, and a lot of, and remember that because there is magic in the world, there are monsters in the world. There's also miracles. Um, Clerics in Harn, um, some of them have the ability, not all of them, some of them have the ability to call upon their God and grant them powers over the people, right? Or over themselves or their friends or whatever, right? Because that is a thing, it pretty much proves the fact that there are gods in the world. So so gods are um, more. It's more than just faith, right? It's devotion, right? Because they know that there is a God, so they strive to please those gods and get their favor and what have you. So it's very influential. So the priests are very influential all across Harn, not just in Kaldor. Uh, okay, because Kaldor is kind of by itself, if you can see, if you could imagine, it's away from all the other human um, kingdoms. It allows me, as a game master, to explore exploration. It allows me to say, okay, over here there's this crypt, or there's this, because there was a civilization that lived on this island long time ago, like 50,000 years ago. And there's the Earth Masters, and then there's some other races or whatever that lived between then and now that you can explore their um, dungeons, you know, go through them, and there might be monsters that have moved in, or there might be orcs that have moved in, or just other humans, that are trying to are using it as an opportunity to do whatever. So basically, I have a lot of freedom to allow players, because players are going to be, that's another thing. Okay, players are going to be characters or players are going to be. I want to refrain from using the word adventurer because that's really not what they are. The players are characters. They run characters in a world, an open world. So, yes, they can adventure if they want, whatever that means, but they can also explore. They can also um, be mercenaries. They could, which is kind of frowned upon, but not really. Not really, because Kaldor will always need soldiers, and certain barons and stuff will always need like guards. But you don't want to, as a player, you probably don't want to be stuck on guard duty for a year or whatever. So you want to have a little bit of freedom. So they might go to places that are in need of help. They might be troubleshooters. They might be um, caravan guards, that are going from one kingdom to another kingdom. They might be caught up in some kind of turmoil or whatever. Kaldor is set up. Now, this is different than all the other kingdoms. Every kingdom has kind of a unique story. And Kaldor's story is the king is sickly. He's been sickly for a long time. And it is believed that, now think of Arthur before the Holy Grail was brought to him, right? He was sickly in Camelot and all that, and he had his knights go out and quest for the Holy Grail. Okay. It's kind of that story, except this king is not in Camelot. He personally has left to go find the cure to whatever's wrong with him, whatever ails him. So for the last year or so, his wife, the queen, has been running Kaldor in his name, and everyone is expecting this king to pass away. Right? They don't know where he is. That's a problem right now. But if they find out that he's passed away, then all the different noble houses are going to try to figure out who the next king is. And it's going to be based on succession or military strength or loyalties or alliances or whatever. And so Kaldor is set up in a unique way where there's going to be kind of like this succession war possibly, which I kind of like that whole idea. And I can, as a game master, decide what happens to the king because it's kind of like left open. It's left open for me. I love that. I love that whole storyline. Okay, so right. Okay, so that's Harn. So you got the gods, you got clerics of that gods. You have a wizard organization that monitors and maintains their order, and anyone that strays from that, they get all involved in that. There's elves, there's dwarves, but players really shouldn't play that. You have your traditional medieval professions like farmers and a weaver and forester and all that kind of stuff. You have knights and stuff like that. Now, okay, since I mentioned knights, in my game, I want my players to be involved with what's going on in Kaldor, right? The whole political intrigue, espionage, alliances. I want the players to be involved in all that. I don't want them to be involved from the sidelines, right? I don't want them to be an adventuring party that wanders into town and the king says, hey, you over there, I need you to take this message from me to here to there to there. The king would never do that, or a duke or a baron would never do that. That's not something. Now, think about this in reality, right? Because it's more real than fantasy. So, in a medieval world, you get a bunch of strangers walking into your town. You're not going to ask them to go take this to there, unless you don't trust anybody on your court. You're going to look at one of your most trusted knights, and you're going to say, "Hey, you take your squires and head over there and deliver this message." So the players would never have an opportunity to get involved in the higher politics. So what I plan to do, I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do it, but what I plan to do is put them in a position, a noble position, um, super low ranking, like maybe a man at arms or a squire or something like that, where they are part of the retinue of a lord, but not, and could be considered noble, but uh, not in charge of anything, like not a duke or a baron or something like that. So, like a bachelor knight or something where the players will be able to. First of all, they'll have their own liege lord that they gotta answer to, but then they'll also have uh, the opportunity to intermix with other nobles. Like, because if you're a knight and you travel to another city, you're going to be expected to present yourself to the nobles in that city and let them know, hey, I'm traveling through, I just want you to know that I'm staying at the inn, etc., etc. And then if this king needs a knight, like when you go home, take this message, or you know, or whatever, and as a maybe a lordless knight, like a not a bachelor knight, but like a not the black knight. What I'm trying to say is like a knight that doesn't have a lord. He might um, quest, to gain a lord or to gain the favor of a certain lord or something like that. And so that's what I'm thinking. Now, knighthood, I don't think I want to knight them from the jump. I think that's something they can earn. That would be maybe something they can aspire to, and then once they get knighted, maybe they can aspire to maybe acquiring a keep or land and retainers and followers, maybe a village, and then aspire to maybe even more. So that's kind of the direction I want to go. I want to give them the opportunity, because just your average Joe Blow on the street is never going to be given a keep. That's not. You don't just become a lord, right? So, I mean, there could be a battlefield knighthood or whatever, but usually the only ones that they would ever consider knighting would be people that already have noble blood. So that's what I'm planning on doing, is giving the players some noble blood. Um, and by being a noble and by having a liege lord, it's going to automatically embroil them in the political intrigue, where now they have to figure out who their friends are, who their enemies are. Maybe their liege lord is not a is opposed to what they believe, or maybe he's allied with them and they feel loyal to him, and they would try to build his influence, because if you build your lord's influence, your personal influence goes up as well. So um, so having said all of that, I still want there to be um, external forces playing on Caldor, like the orcs and monsters and maybe a foreign kingdom, or bandit raids or something. I want to have there to be external threats. Um, but like I said, this is going to be a project over the next few weeks with these not tutorial videos, but videos showing you my well, some of them will be tutorial videos, like the character creation. They're pretty much all going to be tutorial videos, but they're going to be like character creation, combat, maybe magic, maybe clerical rituals and stuff like that. Um, how you would like use the skill system in the middle of a game session, um, stuff like that. And then there's going to be talk about all the different gods. You know, that might be in the religious section. There might talk about different monsters that exist in the world. That might be a tutorial, but I don't think I want to do that because I don't want to have any spoilers for any of my players that decide to play in my game. I am going to open up my Roll20 game to external players so that I'll have my core set of players come over, probably from my D&D game. Um, Maybe they come, maybe they don't come, but there's at least one additional spot that we could have, and I know how the campaign's going to start. 90% set on how it's going to start, uh, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Um, okay, there is a Kickstarter that just finished that I luckily got in on. I've already been charged. My card's already been charged. So I'm expecting in June to receive my Kickstarter Harnworld, which is going to be the Harnworld 2023, um, which is going to be a book like this thick. And it's also going to have a PDF version, which um, I have to have a PDF version. I'm going to be glad to have the book. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's why I backed it, because I wanted the book and the maps and all that stuff. But the PDF version will help me with the Roll20, because then I can just take a PDF, take a screenshot of a map, put it on the screen, boom, there you go, and then I can show the players. Um, yeah, it's a hex-based system. You can see hexes on the screen right here, but these hexes are approximately 20 kilometers. Right, approximately 20 kilometers. They say they're about 12.5 miles, um, which is also, it's an approximation. It's not an exact science, but I think they said that's 5 leagues. Harn leagues, I think is what they said. A Harn league is approximately 4 kilometers, and since there's 5 of them, it's approximately 20 kilometers, etc., etc. So each one of these hexes is approximately 20 kilometers, which when you zoom in on the kingdom, I have other maps that and Columbia Games has published every one of these squares. You can see a square right here. This square with the word, can I say that? Apharesers. Okay, that square is C2. So if I was to go on their website and locate map C2 and I purchased it, it would be delivered this map, but it would be zoomed in where you would have all the contour lines, all the cities and roads and rivers and all that stuff. So Caldor are these 4 squares right here. Actually, these 4 squares. It probably should be 6 as well, but J4 and J5 are the 2 main squares. I also have K5, I think, and not K4. But either way, um, I have these, and if you zoom in, it zooms in, it gives you all the little towns because this doesn't show you all the little towns. There's like probably 100 little settlements in these areas, and it gives you the contour lines and the mountains and caves and mines, and pretty much just zooms in pretty heavily on that area. Uh, where was I going with this? Um, oh, the hexes. The hex on this map would equate to a hex on that map. So you'll have a hex like this big, and it'll be 20 miles across, 20 kilometers across, and there's rivers and all that kind of stuff in the hex, but you get the whole map. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I just wanted to bring one up so you could see it. Here we go. So this is one of the maps, and you can see all the contour lines, uh, all the rivers. You can see like that's a little orc village, I do believe. And then like these little symbols here show you that that's a mine. If you zoom in, I think it tells you what kind of mine that is. It might be tin actually. Okay, I'm in read mode, so yeah. See how that says tin, and then it shows leagues. Yeah. Okay. I can zoom in. I just have to do it a different way. Yeah, that's tin. Um, Now, if it's got an X in it, then it's a religious location like a chapel or something like that. If it's a big circle like that, it's a castle. If it's a square, it's a town slash village. If it has a dot in it, I think it's a walled village. Oh, hold on. It'll just tell me right over here, wouldn't it? Yeah. Dot means it's a square with a dot is 100 moot. Um, 100 moot is it's a form of government. The It's like you have a representative for every 100 citizens. Um, there's Tashal, that's the capital. Now, I don't see a symbol for that right there on my symbols. I remember I don't see it. I think, I mean, just Gargan Colony and Tribal Village. Okay. I see Tribal Village. I don't see a Gargan. But either way, um, I don't see this symbol on the map, but just by looking at that symbol, it looks like a battlefield. Like that was where there was a big battle. And I would have to look at the history of the kingdom to see if there is, in fact, a battle there. That looks like it might be an inn along Tarastro Way. Okay, what's a white with a dot in it? A manor, a ruin. Okay. It might be someplace to go investigate and check out. Yeah, see, so they break it down pretty good. I know that there's some copper mines on one of these maps as well. So copper and tin is fairly common in this area. Yeah, and then if you zoom in, okay, I'm not gonna save it. I'm just gonna upload it real quick. They have maps of like interiors of keeps and stuff like that. Now, of course, they don't have maps for everything, but I will have to create some of those maybe in my software or whatever. But okay, so this is the introductory video. I'm going to close it up here. The next video that you should see is me actually making a character on screen with you guys. It's probably going to be, and I've thought of this already. I'm gonna I'm probably gonna make a Knight of Caldor, because okay, not Sir Kay, he would be a NPC character. Wait. Put him over there. Maybe with his art. There we go. Yeah, so we're going to be using the Harnmaster 3rd edition character sheet from Roll20. There's a couple of different ones. I tried them both, and I think I like this one the best. So, well, I know I like this one the best, and so that's what we're going to use in the next video. All right. I'll see you in the next one.